Bear Grylls is that real-life hero we all saw doing such daring feats in our childhood that it made our hair stand on end. Things we could never even dream of doing, this guy actually did, all thanks to his strong mindset. But did you know Bear Grylls wasn't always like this? The man who looks fearless and strong was once weak, scared, anxious, and had battled depression. In his autobiography, Mud, Sweat, and Tears, Bear writes that fear forces you to appear tough on the outside, but makes you weak on the inside. Bear Grylls' biggest fear was heights, known as acrophobia. But isn't it a miracle that, a few years later, at the beginning of each episode of his show, he would descend from a helicopter from a height? Bear Grylls was also a part of the UK's Special Forces SAS, where he gained a lot of experience in parachuting. He had jumped out of planes many times. In 1996, at the age of 21, Bear Grylls jumped from a height of 16,000 feet during a mission in Zambia. But this time, his parachute didn't open. When he jumped into the sky, he opened his parachute at the right time, but still, he kept falling fast. When he looked up, he saw that the parachute hadn't fully opened. He frantically started pulling the parachute cords, trying to get it to open properly. But as he did, he hit the trees and crashed to the ground, and everything went dark in a flash. He had fallen on his back, and as soon as he hit the ground, he felt excruciating pain. Worse still, even after falling from such a height, he was conscious. He couldn't move. He was just lying there, crying out loud, hoping his friends would come to rescue him. The pain was so unbearable that he felt it was better to die. But death didn't come. He lay there in agony for a long time, and when his friends finally took him to a hospital in Africa, he remembers the doctor injecting him in the back, slowly easing his pain. He began to think he was getting better and tried to get up, but then the doctor told him he could no longer walk. Hearing this, 21-year-old Bear Grylls felt like his world had ended. When he saw the X-ray, he clearly saw that 3 of his spinal vertebrae, T8, T10, and T12, had shattered. These are the strongest bones in the back, but they were completely crushed. The young man who used to climb mountains couldn't even walk to the bathroom. He says breaking so many bones from a parachute fall wasn't as painful as spending a year in the hospital trying to heal those bones. Lying on the hospital bed, he thought he might never walk again. Adventure, exploring new places, and living life to the fullest were the reasons he lived. But this injury had taken away his reason for living. This thought kept him awake at night, drenched in sweat from anxiety, struggling to breathe. Every night, he was filled with regret, pity for himself, and self-hate. 2 months had passed, but instead of improving, his condition was getting worse. The pain kept increasing, and his body was stiffening. Seeing his situation, he became more and more negative. He didn't find joy in anything. He was angry and would cry over small things. Slowly, he slipped deeper into depression. Those who knew him thought Bear Grylls was a very positive person, mentally tough, and would bravely face this adversity. But that wasn't the case. He was just 21 years old and very scared. He couldn't understand how he would live his life going forward, what he would do, and all his dreams seemed to be crumbling in front of him. One night, lying in bed, his eyes fell on a photo frame kept far away. It was a photo of Mount Everest. Since childhood, Bear Grylls and his father had a dream of climbing Mount Everest one day. Seeing that photo frame covered in dust, he felt like his dreams were also covered in dust, which he couldn't bear. That night, he was alone. He gathered courage, stood up, and, with the help of crutches, reached the photo frame and cleaned the dust off it. Thinking about it, he fell asleep, contemplating how he could give himself the will to live. This thought deeply ingrained itself in his subconscious mind, giving him hope and a reason to live. The next morning when he woke up, he remembered something his grandmother used to say, "Bear, son, everything that happens in life is for the good. It is man's nature to find excuses to make himself sad and troubled. Whenever you face a problem, always remind yourself that everything is happening by God's will, who never lets anything wrong happen." At that moment, he understood the depth of this thought and felt the truth that, because of this accident, he could have died. But because he was still alive, it meant God had some better plan for him. After this, he stopped worrying about what would happen in his life, whether he would walk again or work in the special forces again. When his overthinking lessened, he found peace of mind. His stress and negativity also started to decrease. Before healing his body, he began to heal his mind. Once his mind became strong, his body started to heal on its own. His wounds began to heal, and the speed of bone healing increased. He remembered a piece of advice from his closest friend, Ed Ames, who once told Bear Grylls, "In God's world, there is birth, death, and then rebirth. And from this injury, you've been reborn. Now I'm like a new child, carefree, without any worries about the past or the future, just grateful for the present." Bear Grylls says life doesn't often give you a second chance, but if it does, be very grateful. He was grateful for his life, for his broken back, and for his dreams. He took that picture of Mount Everest in his hands and shouted, "As soon as I recover, I will climb Mount Everest and touch its peak." If anything helped him out of his depression, it was his goal, his aim, and his purpose. Until now, he had no reason to live, but when he couldn't even walk, he made a promise to himself that he would climb Mount Everest. When he told people around him that he wanted to recover and climb Mount Everest, people ignored him, but his goal was crystal clear. He had to recover as quickly as possible. His body and mind both found a goal they could work towards together. After the third month of his accident, the pain started to decrease. 8 months later, he was discharged from the hospital, and in a year, he was completely healed. The doctors had advised him not to return to training in the Special Forces. He had no job, so he didn't have any money, but to fulfill his dreams, he needed 2.5 million rupees. He needed to train to climb Mount Everest and buy equipment. To do this, he wrote sponsorship proposals to about 250 companies and was rejected by all of them. Despite facing 250 rejections, he didn't give up. He knocked on the doors of many people but was repeatedly met with disappointment. Finally, the Safa Forces Help Organization helped make his dream come true. 18 months after the parachuting accident, on May 16, 1998, he made his childhood dream a reality. His journey to climb Mount Everest is a story in itself. This journey was not easy. 4 of his companions lost their lives, and he faced 2 near-death experiences where he narrowly escaped death. But somehow, at the age of 23, he became the youngest person from Britain to summit Mount Everest. After that, his story became very famous, and people started inviting him to seminars as a speaker. Several documentaries were made about him, and finally, Discovery gave him the opportunity that brought him worldwide fame, and that's when everyone got to know him from Man vs. Wild. Maybe you are one of those people too. If you liked this video, please support the channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching.